Good afternoon. Today we're here with Mr. Teddy Ni, and we're going to be basically looking at his story, why he came to Taiwan, what were the reasons, so also his motivation, was his family supportive. We're going to see his story today, but more we will have focus on what is he doing here, what are his occupations, his hobbies, and his activities. So good afternoon, Mr. Teddy. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so what country are you from?
From Indonesia.
You're from
Yes.
Indonesia. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So why did you come to Taiwan? What were the reasons behind this decision?
Okay, that's a good question. Because in the beginning, I didn't have the plan to come to Taiwan because I didn't have much knowledge about Taiwan. But during one time, I have a cousin that was studying here, and then he went home. And at that time, I was about to graduate high school, and we had a small family gathering. He shared with me his experience studying here in Taiwan. He got scholarships, and then he was studying in the international college, which means all of the studies are in English, which is very good for me because I couldn't speak Chinese at the time. So actually in the beginning I considered going to Malaysia or Singapore because my hometown, Medan City, is very near to Malaysia and Singapore, and a lot of my friends are there. There are also lots of scholarships given by universities from there to students, Indonesian students, especially from my hometown. But at that time, my reason to go overseas not just to study, but I also want to explore different culture. So Taiwan was very foreign to me. I didn't know much about Taiwan, and the language of Taiwan is Chinese Mandarin, a language that I didn't know very well at the time. So I thought that it might be more challenging to come to Taiwan rather than go to Singapore or Malaysia, and that's why I decided to come here.
Okay, so I can figure out that that's the reason why you decide specifically Taiwan.
Yes.
Because of recommendations and having previous knowledge about the place and how it deals with,
Yes.
right? Okay, so what was the most challenging part of the process of migration?
Most challenging part is probably finding information about Taiwan, about the studies, about the living accommodation, because my only key person to come here is my cousin. So at the time I didn't know anybody else that come to Taiwan. But fortunately, my cousin helped me all the time since the beginning.
Oh, that's really amazing to have someone here
Yes.
to come to it. This leads me to the other question: was your family supportive to your decision, or were they against it? What were the emotions they encountered themselves with while you were giving them this information that you want to come to Taiwan?
Of course, it's hard for them to let the only son to go to a place quite far away. But they are very supportive. I think it's also because going overseas to study is something very common. I have many friends that also go overseas to study, so it's something that they need to accept. It's the reality
That we are growing, right?
Yeah, right. And it's also part of the process of maturity, the transformation from a teenager to an adult. So by going overseas, it means that I will have much more responsibility on myself. I learn to be more independent. And so, yeah, my parents are very supportive since the beginning.
Okay, that's really great to know. So here we had a little background on what are the reasons, was his family supportive, or basically why did he came to Taiwan?
Okay, so now we will be looking at some of the challenges that Mr. Teddy face while moving to Taiwan, any challenges he's facing currently. So, Mr. Teddy, I would like to know, like, when you first came to Taiwan, were there any challenges, any culture shock that you had? How were you able to cope with it?
Yeah, definitely. Although I was born as a Chinese ethnic Indonesian, but that doesn't mean I understand everything about the Chinese culture. And also, in Indonesia, we Chinese ethnic, we don't speak Mandarin. So the first challenge is the language. Because Indonesian language use Latin alphabets, so I'm more familiar with languages that use ABCs. So coming here and seeing all of these Chinese characters, that really made me afraid, because I don't know if it's a picture or if it's a word, it means something. So yeah, the first challenge is the language, and then the weather is very different. I'm from a tropical country. In Indonesia, we only have dry season and rainy season, but here in Taiwan there are four. So deciding which clothes to wear is also a problem. Especially the weather in Taiwan changed very drastically. For example, today it's hot, but who knows, maybe tomorrow will become cold. So I still remember one day, one friend told me, a Taiwanese friend told me that this weather will become cold, but at that time, on that day, it was a bit hot. But I just want to make sure I prepare. I'm prepared for the weather. So what I wore at that time, I wore a t-shirt and then a polo shirt and then a fall jacket, fall season jacket, and then a winter season jacket. So 4 layers.
Oh, wow.
And
You were very prepared.
it's quite embarrassing because at the schools nobody wears like that. But because I didn't live in the dorm, so and also usually I had classes for the whole day, so I just want to make sure I'm prepared for any kind of weather. The next challenge is the food. Indonesian food is spicy because Indonesia is popular for the spices, and it's very different with the food here in Taiwan. Even the chili in Taiwan is not spicy for me. So, what else? Yeah, there are a lot of food here that I was not familiar. Even until today, I don't know the name of the dishes, but what I know is I like it. I know the taste, although I don't know the name. I still eat it. Yeah. Then the next challenge is socializing with the Taiwanese. That's also not easy because at first we have a language barrier, and then second, Taiwanese always have Chinese name for everything. For movies, for celebrities, they have a Chinese name. So it just makes me difficult to talk about something, like talk about the movie with them, because in Indonesia we keep the original name. If let's say this movie is called Spider-Man, we call it Spider-Man. In Taiwan, it's called with the Chinese name. I guess that's those are the biggest challenges.
Okay, and was it a challenge for you? Was it like moving to Taiwan, was your well-being, your mental health ever affected, or were you able to keep it stable emotionally?
Yeah, actually, I was very happy to come overseas because it has been my dream to go overseas to have my own life far from parents.
Being independent.
Being independent. It doesn't mean that my parents control me, but I think it's just nice to have an independent life, yeah, to learn by yourself and then to decide for yourself.
Okay, and I think you mentioned about socializing, your socializing life. It is a challenge for you, right? And is there any experience you would like to share with us about time you faced difficulty socializing with the Taiwanese?
Yeah, the biggest is the language barrier. If you are in Taipei, it might be easier to find locals that can speak English, but outside of Taipei, it's quite difficult actually. Yeah. And also the topics that people usually talk about is different. For example, I see online games is so big here. Teenagers to adults, they all play online games, but that's not something that I like to do. So it might be just my problem, but this is the challenge that I face.
I see. So here we saw some of the challenges Mr. Teddy faced when moving to Taiwan. Some of the challenges included socializing due to the language barrier and some culture shocks.
Hi, Mr. Teddy. So just to ask, can I know what's your current citizenship status in Taiwan now?
I'm still an Indonesian citizen, and I use work visa.
Work visa. Oh, okay. So if talking about work visa, so what are you currently doing in Taiwan now? Are you schooling or are you already at work? What are some of the things that you are doing if you're working?
I first came here to study university, and then I studied until master's. And after that, I got a job as a programmer. Actually, the official title is a software engineer. So basically, I do software every day, all day long, just sitting in front of computer.
I see. So how long have you been at your job already as a software engineer in Taiwan?
Since 2014, almost 8 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So just to ask, so since you've been here in Taiwan for so long, at least 8 years in the working force, so do you ever actually regret immigrating to Taiwan?
Well, that's one consideration, but I still don't know yet because right now I'm still alone. I mean, like single. Yeah, actually, a lot of people ask me this question. So I have thought about it for a long time, and my answer that I will give right now is that it will be based on my discussion with my future partner, whether we'll stay here or go back or probably go to other country. And especially in about my job, I'm a software engineer. It's a very demanding job. So I think it's quite easy to get a job anywhere.
Yeah, I believe so as well. All right. So since we have already talked about your job in Taiwan already, so I just want to ask a little bit more into your private life, if that's okay. We want to know how is life for you like in Taiwan? So we're talking about, we cover your job. So maybe, is there any things that you do when you're not working, or things that you enjoy doing in Taiwan?
I'm quite fortunate here. There are so many foreigners, so I have a lot of chance to learn and practice different languages, also get to know international friends, get to know other cultures. So what I do when I don't work, before the pandemic, I arranged some meetups, language meetups, but it has to stop after the pandemic. So right now what I'm doing is online meetups and also some language related projects, including
two voluntary projects that I'm taking part. One is from Singapore, another one is from Swiss, and I am the social networking manager in
Oh,
those two projects.
okay. Actually, I'm from Singapore, so so I'm actually quite curious to ask. So can you share a little bit more about the project that you're doing with Singapore?
This project is about meetups for dialects. So we started with Chinese dialects like Hokkien, Hakka, Cantonese, because we know that a lot of people just learn big languages like European languages, but not many, even for us, like the Chinese community in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. By the way, I'm from Medan, so it's very close to Singapore. So I also feel what Singaporean people feel
Yes.
regarding dialects, Hokkien. So it started with those ideas to have meetups for dialects. And then right now we have been expanding and expanding.
I see, I see. I can definitely feel what you're talking about because I'm a Singaporean, and I think at least here in Singapore, most people, English is the main language, and I think a lot of Chinese here are not really good at Mandarin already, let alone dialects. So I guess projects like these are really, really beneficial to get some awareness about it. All right, so we're talking about your project with the languages and dialects, right? So now I think we are very curious. So how many languages do you actually know, and can you actually name them out?
It's very difficult to tell any number because people think differently. But I have been learning language for 10 years continuously. Yes, I have learned more than 20 languages, and right now, every day I still use more or less 10. Yeah, mostly for reading and chatting. I mean, like chatting and communicating with people from around the world. It's also because of my projects. So most of the time I communicate with people from around the world. Yeah, so basically that's it. Yeah. And I'm still learning more and more. Non-stop.
So maybe if you could share, let's say with your current job and you staying in Taiwan, right? Maybe what is the maybe top 5 most used language that you have to speak or read in every day?
In Taiwan, of course, my native language, Medan Hokkien, and then Indonesian, English, Chinese, and Esperanto.
Oh,
So yeah, there's an Esperanto community here.
yeah, I'm quite surprised as well. All right, so since you know so many languages and you're still currently learning even more, right? So I actually very curious to know, how does learning so much languages help you with your life in Taiwan? So does it bring any advantage, or are you able to use it to do something about it apart from your job or projects aside?
Yeah, of course, it helped me to get access to more information because reading is also my hobby. I like to read especially news, the latest news from different countries. So it's better if I read in the original language. And I also like to read about the other topics like the history, the science, and yeah, what language has given me, of course, the access to more information.
Okay, so enough about your work and your languages. So we want to know. So are you still in contact with your family back in Indonesia, Medan?
Am I still what?
Are you still in I would say frequent contact with your family and friends back in Indonesia, Medan?
Yes, with my family, especially my mom. She misses me a lot. So she calls me almost every day.
Almost every day. All right. I mean, with the pandemic around, so when was the last time you're actually able to fly back to Indonesia to look at your mom physically again?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So that's already 19 or
Uh,
20 already?
right,
see.
yeah, 20. Yeah, 2020.
About 20
years
years.
ago. Usually go back for the Chinese New Year.
Chinese New Year. I see, I see. So I'm asking this on behalf of other students or so actually exchange students that might be in Taiwan. Do you have any secret to maintaining very good relationships with your family and friends back in Indonesia, especially when you're almost like half the globe away and it's not really easy to see them every day, especially for your friends, apart from your mother who you talk to every day.
Communication is very important. Yeah, so I think sharing stories. Yeah, you can talk about your daily life, what happened today, or what's your plan tomorrow. Communication, that's the only key.
Communication. So how do you all do it? Is it like you have a set meeting every week or every 2 weeks with your friends online just to talk about your current matters, or does it come once and on and off? Yeah,
With who?
with your friends and families.
Uh, no, I don't have any set schedule. My mom can call me anytime she wants. When I'm busy, then she knows I'm busy, so I will call back later. With friends, apart from the meetup that I arranged before, right now I don't have any schedule.
Okay. So it's really
Just
just
anytime I want to go out, then I contact anybody that wants to go out, hang out together, just for a meal.
all right. So talking about your friends hanging out together in Taiwan. So what are some of the things that you and your friends do when you're in Taiwan, when you're hanging out?
Oh, eat is number one.
Eating, oh yeah, of course.
In Taiwan, yeah, Taiwan. There are lots of night markets, lots of street food. There are also lots of theme restaurants here. Very nice for taking picture for Instagram.
Wow. All right. So how about apart from eating, is there any other interesting things that you do with your friends in Taiwan that maybe others don't do?
Yeah, me personally, I like going to exhibitions or museums or the parks, just anywhere good for picture. I like to collect memories.
Oh, so are you a photographer?
I used to have a professional camera, but right now, no, I just use my phone. I used to have not just professional camera, but also a Facebook page where I posted my pictures. Yeah. But right now, I feel kind of lazy because I'm quite occupied with other stuff. So I just take with my phone.
Okay, I understand. All right, so enough about your current life. So I'm curious to know about your future plans. So just now you already gave us a sneak peek into some of the future plans that you might do, which you might want to consult with your future partner, right? In case, so let's say if we take the partner aside, do you have any short-term plans about working in Taiwan? So we are looking at maybe do you have any goals that you want to achieve before you return to Indonesia, or are you going to stay here for the long term if the work allows you to?
Yeah, I want to have my own business and also buy a house, either here or in Indonesia, which is easier and more affordable. Besides that, I want to keep on doing what I like to do, which is about languages, like organizing meetups and practice more languages, and then be involved in more cultural events.
Cultural events. I see. All right. So since you've mentioned languages again, I think I forgot to ask you just now. So how long does it take to really at least get to the level of a conversational kind of standard for a language?
That's really depends on the language because some languages are more difficult to learn and not not easy to get somebody to practice. But it's easier to reach the comprehensible level. Like you can understand the language faster than you can speak the language because especially for me, I like reading, so I read every day.
Oh, okay.
I
So,
do more. Yeah.
all right. So reading is one of the methods you actually do to try to master the languages, right? I see, I see. So, do you try to set, like, let's say, do you put aside 1 to 2 hours every day or a set amount of time every day compulsory to practice and learn languages, or does it just come when you want to?
Yeah, just anytime. Just anytime. It's like we need to drink all the time, so that's what I do with language. Just in any little time, like for example, waiting for somebody, I can take out my books or I can play some language games
Oh, okay.
to review some words, for example.
I see. All right. That's very interesting because I think even for myself, learning a language is so difficult that I really have to sit down and really concentrate before I can do the practice. So it's interesting to know that you actually do it anytime, any day, even when outside. Okay, so let me jump back to your future plans, all right? So just a very last question before I give it back to Catherine. So do you think that coming to Taiwan to study and work has changed your life or make any difference in your life as compared to what you have back in Indonesia before you come here?
Yeah, definitely. Because here I have a different social circle. I have friends from different countries. So of course, it influenced my personality, my way of thinking. So, but this kind of influence is in a positive influence. So I just take it as a part of the learning, part of my personal development.
So you talk about the influences that it has on your life, right? So could you maybe share with us like one or two of such influence, like what's different in Taiwan that influence you in that way as compared to Indonesia?
Taiwanese culture is much influenced by the Japanese, so I think that they are more polite. And for example, people say thank you, excuse me, sorry all the time. So this is something that has become my habit. And whenever I go back and when I do the same thing, I say thank you, sorry, excuse all the time to people there. They think it very strange, but for me, it's very natural.
All right, I see. So at least that's a very, very good habit to have no matter where you are in the world as well.
Okay, so Mr. Teddy, we have a few more questions to make. And I heard that you have this motivation to learn so many languages. Of what I've heard was more than 20, is that right?
Yeah.
I would say that with me knowing 3, I think that's a lot. So what are your motivation? What is your motivation why you want to learn these languages?
Okay. Maybe I can talk a little bit about my childhood. I was born as Chinese ethnic, as Hokkien ethnic, but my Hokkien side is from my father, and from my mom's side is a mix of Cantonese and Hinghuanese, which is a very small group in China. So there are actually 3 ethnics from China in me. So the Cantonese, the Hokkien, and the Hinghua. And 3 of these, in the original place, they speak different languages. But in Medan, we only speak Hokkien because that's the lingua franca. And I learned Cantonese from my grandmother. Yeah, I still have relatives in Hong Kong, so if I know Cantonese, that would be very useful for me. So my motivation to learn languages like Cantonese, of course, to communicate with my relatives in Hong Kong. And for learning other languages, like mostly European languages, that is to get more information, like the big languages, for example, English, Spanish, French, because these languages have a long history, so there are lots of things about this world that I can read. And I have science background. I used to study science, so this is very good for me. These languages are very good for me. I can get access to more knowledge about this.
So you would say that your motivation is the amount of things that you can get to know and how it expands your horizon about other things when you know these languages. Okay. So what are your methods to learn these languages? What do you do daily or weekly to learn these languages?
I read most of the time, but if I just read, that means that I just exercise my comprehension. So in order to know how to use the language, I need to do either speaking or writing. And to speak, I need to find somebody that has the time. And if I want to practice languages that not belong to here, not belong to Asia, I need to face the time difference problem, and it's quite difficult sometimes. So I started to blog in different languages. Right now I have blogs in 8 languages. So it means every time I write an article, I'll have the translation to 7 other languages.
Okay, that's really amazing. And what are the things that you do? For example, do you listen to the TV, news? What are the things, like the small things that help you keep the language?
Yeah, I listen to radio all the time because while I'm doing programming, I cannot read because I cannot divide my focus. I need to read the codes and read articles at the same time. That's impossible. But I can do programming and listen. So I listen to radio or listen to videos.
So you would say that YouTube is a
Right.
good help
Yeah,
to learning these
YouTube,
languages?
Any radio station's website.
And in order to keep these languages, for so to say, not to forget, would you say that the online interaction with people from those countries, with those languages, is what helps you keep the language?
Not necessarily, because go back to the point that I have mentioned, sometimes it's not easy to find somebody who is available. So one solution that I did is having language meetups. So in my language meetup, I gather together people that has the same interests to practice a certain language. So it's not necessary to have a native speaker there, because if we just depend on native speakers, then sometimes it's just too difficult to do.
Okay, so I would say that your methods are very expanded to different things that you would do, and that's a very interesting story of yours. So now, the last question is, what would you tell someone, your family, a friend that would want to come from your country to Taiwan? What would you tell them to expect or to bring with them, or think that they will miss out?
My parents know what they need to bring when they come to Taiwan. That is chili, Indonesian chili. So because Indonesian people like spicy food. Besides, just prepare themselves to not to be understood, not having difficulty in communication with the people here, because English is actually not so widely used in many places in Taiwan. If you just go to touristic places, of course, people there they can speak English. But if you want to explore it in the local way, they need to be prepared for all of these language barriers, and also the food, the food that you cannot find in the Taiwanese restaurants in your country.
And also to prepare for the cold weather, right? As in
Right,
your
the
country,
cold
it's
weather.
not used to be cold. So basically, we saw the story of Mr. Ni today, and we can see that he has a very well developed story, and he would focus in languages. That's his hobby, his passion, and also developing in his education. He had his education in Taiwan, both his bachelor's and master's, that's right? And also, well, he's working as a programmer. So, Mr. Teddy Ni, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as we did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.